Good day. This is Shanik again with you. I thank you for joining me in the second part of our module and for participating in our forums. We are reviewing the steps to develop an investigation. And in the first part, we talked about 4 initial steps. So you can see the review in the following slide. So once we have determined there is a story, once we have corroborated and made basic verification that our suspicion is correct, or a tip, or the hunch we have, once we have a hypothesis and we have determined what evidence we need, the next very important step is to come up with an action plan. I cannot stress how important it is to think in this phase and in all the process really. Every minute invested in thinking will pay out. One thing I try to make sure when designing my action plan is that it looks more like the figure to your right and not like the one on your left. I want to make sure I'm picking the shortest way possible to the evidence. It often happens that the easiest route isn't successful. It happens many times, most of the times probably. And that's why we have a plan B and a plan C. In any case, it's best if we don't choose the most complicated route first. So how do we come up with an action plan? I'm sure you have your thoughts, you've got very valuable experiences you can share with us. Please do it in our forums. Something I find very useful is to start by making lists of things. Lists of places I must go to, a list of things I must personally corroborate, documents I have to FOIA or to find, and people I must listen to. This starts off as a disorderly collection of lists. I call it a roadmap. I believe we can often forget great reporting ideas if we don't write them down, so I just add things at the beginning and in the course of the investigation, and I will trim and prioritize it afterwards, and continuously. I also build a map of sources. I use a diagram that looks very much like the map of a theater, with a stage at the very center and rows of seats. And what I do is I place the sources in the diagram according to their proximity and their role in the story. Those who are first-hand witnesses or protagonists or antagonists go in the row closest to the stage. And say external experts go on the very last row. I will often move the sources around the more I know about them and their role in their story. This map helps me decide who to go first and second and so on. I add these ideas of who to talk to my roadmap file, and I then make a first selection of to-do things. The straightest route possible to the evidence I need. This roadmap is a living animal, and I feed it all the way. I add things, I reorganize, I prioritize. David Barstow and I shared this roadmap on a Google Drive while working together in the Walmart story. That way we could make sure that we were both on the same page. We were both with the same priorities. That's what we do in collaborative investigations in Quito Elemento Lab as well. Part of our action plan is also having a clear idea of how to make our first approach to sources, how to describe what we're doing and why. Being very careful not to mislead anybody, but also very strategic in regards to how much to say, to whom, and when. It is of extreme importance to go to the sources with an attitude of total open-minded curiosity, without giving the impression that you have come with a fixed idea in your head. Because what we're really doing is we're wanting to know it all. And the way we're going to organize our reporting and our interviews is basically to know it all, explore it all. One thing I want to make sure at this stage in the reporting is that my hypothesis, the pieces of evidence I have identified, and my action plan are perfectly aligned. I've learned many things from Lisa Olsen, your instructor in Module 1 and an extraordinary journalist, and I'll bring 2 of them only to the table this time, and this is one of them. This matrix is something that could be important to use at several stages of our reporting. One, when we have confirmed our tip or our hunch and have a hypothesis, and it's also an exercise we can repeat at this moment in the process too when we have an action plan. What this matrix really asks is this story worth the effort? So if your story is very important and very difficult, it's an amazing challenge, and I'm sure you'll want to pursue it. If it's very important and less difficult, it's of course a hey, it's something you want to do. But what if turns out it's less important and very difficult? It's something you want to be able to assess very early in the process. Another thing I've learned from Lise is that investigating is hard and that there are ways to keep spirits high. One is it's important to have in mind that we will be in a roller coaster of emotions. Investigating can take you through an euphoria and to the deepest insecurity in one same day, in a very predictable way as well. So praise yourself each time you have a breakthrough, even if it's small, and toil and be certain that the anguish and the blues will also pass. Apart from this, there are a set of routines that can reduce our suffering and increase our victories. And let me tell you a story. Martin is a German friend whom I went hiking with to a mountain some years ago. We were preparing hot water for an ice soup when Martin realized I had left the box of matches on top of the snow. "Each thing has its place," he scolded me as he rescued the matches and put them in a Ziploc. What I learned from Martin that day, and I apply now to investigation, is the fact that we need to put things in one same place. Unless we are a bit masochistic and we enjoy the experience of not finding valuable information we had. After 1 week of reporting, things can become hard to manage. We need to stay on top of the story, and organization of the material is in the core. It's something we must do every step of the way. Chronologies are one resource and are super important. It's this one place where we put everything that we find and learn. Chronologies help us have all our material together and notice patterns and anomalies. And they tell us a story which will be of great help in the writing process. I usually work with a logbook tool where I start building paragraphs with aspects of the story or scenes that could probably make it to the draft. That way I'm already turning information and findings into story form. I also keep an Excel file with all my FOIA requests in order to remember where I'm at with each of them. And I make memos of each interview or reporting I do on the ground. I write them up as soon as I leave the room. This way, instead of working with dozens of notepads, I have one-page selections of the very best. All this makes the investigation and even collaboration so much easier. Marina Walker, who you may know from ICIJ, and who's one of the very inspiring directives of the consortium, insists on the importance to share radically. Don't keep information to yourself. Communicate tirelessly. So don't keep things to yourself, but share in an organized manner, with chronologies, memos, logbook, roadmaps, and very frequent conversations. Conversations is the other key aspect for an investigative process. Many reporters would prefer to keep their editors far away and colleagues also at arm's length as long as they can. But the best is to do quite the opposite. Get others involved, share the information, share your breakthroughs and your mishaps. Make them part of the process and make them work with you on behalf of the story. I hope you find these ideas helpful. See you in the forums and happy investigating.